My stepdaughter, 16, is pregnant. I, 31, female, am the one who pays for most of her education and I want to cease. Her dad, 33 male, is disappointed in me. How do I proceed to make my point clear to my husband and stepdaughter? English is not my first language. There is really no good the reason behind why I pay for the education. My husband was a teen dad. We will refer to his daughter as Anne. Anne's mom, grandma, and grandma were all teen moms. Anne is now 16 years old and pregnant. Anne stays mostly with us because I am the one who pays most of 75% her private high school tuition. I do so as a payback from when my husband helped me out of a massive debt during our dating years when he made 5 times what I did during that time. He proceeded to gain the international, regional direction of a big company in our country and worked there for some years before he decided to start his own company. Now I make 3 times more than what he is making, but I'm sure he'll double what I'm making within the next 5 years. It had always been my husband who paid for all of Anne's expenses. Her mother took care of her from ages 0 to 13, while husband provided with money for everything and visited every weekend. We divided all of the other household expenses equally. Anne's mom has not given anything towards child support on the last 2 years because she insists she has no money. When Anne turned 14, she wanted to move in with us to start her high school in the big city where we live. We checked on high school, and since public school is terrible here, we decided to enroll her in a fancy private high school. She has always been set that she wanted to be an economist, and that we wanted to move to another country to pursue her dream, and even study in the London School of Economics, just like her dad with his master's. I have been separating some money for this purpose too. My husband and I came to an agreement that I would also help her dream to come true, but I would cease any economic help towards her tuition if she became a teen mom. Anne did not know this, and he agreed. Anne was not involved in this conversation, because husband feared she would tell her mom, and mom would take it as an offense and me saying teen moms are S or things I never even implied. She's that kind of person. This conversation took place 2 years ago, and now Anne is pregnant as soon as she finished her first high school year. Why is Anne pregnant, and what about the future teen dad? I cannot be nice about it. Anne is pregnant because her mother has a turd instead of a brain. My husband and I started talking to her about contraception. I even taught her to put on a C in a cucumber. It was awkward, but oh well. Orientations, etc. And actually took her to the gynecologist, and he recommended her the pill. She stopped taking it because her mom told her she would get fat. Anne was a chubby child and suffered B because of her mom. And started using the cycle method, in which she had S some days before, during, and some days after her period. Anne met a boy her same age in some of her extracurricular classes. He is not from a well-off family and not a bad guy. I've already talked to the boy's parents and they've agreed to pay something like $300 a month if Anne decides to keep the baby. That covers 2/3 of a reputable daycare for 7 hours a day. We've all agreed that it's next-level idiotic to have them marry each other. That seems to be the way to go in my country whenever someone impregnates another someone. What I'm planning to do. I plan on taking the money being used towards her education and use part of it towards child support. Per month, I pay the equivalent of $1,100 towards her high school, the best one in the country. Her dad has the means to either pay a not-so-high-end private high school, but definitely a decent one. I also plan on using the money I've been saving for her university and things like my retirement. I have not made an ultimatum towards her. My plan is to tell her that due to her having a child, I'll use the money that used to go to her education towards the unborn being. If she keeps the baby, I will not pay for any private university. I firmly believe bio-mom needs to step up. My husband is telling me I need to understand the situation. I do not and will not endorse this teen mom dynasty in any way. This is the hill I will die on. I can actually continue paying for her fancy high school, saving a lot less for the university and some of the future child's expenses too, but I feel like I'll be rewarding her for being irresponsible and ducking myself over something I shouldn't. Husband firmly believes I am doing this to punish Anne. But I don't feel so, because I'd still be giving her for child support. It's not like I'm leaving her in the streets. How do I make him understand my reasoning? I truly don't want to be the evil stepmother who has no heart and cut the stepdaughter out. And I also think he is thinking viscerally with what's the best for his child, as he did not experience the teen mom hardships. I want him to understand why I'm not planning to give her everything on a silver plate, even if I could make an extra sacrifice for paying child support and fancy high school. What is happening at the moment? I laid some facts down to Anne, gave her some articles and statistics about how teen moms are one of the most vulnerable groups of people. That this will hinder her dream of going to another country to study and that she knows the stigma it comes with. I recommended she terminate the pregnancy. Anne is unsure, and in my heart I believe she wants to terminate, but her mom is ecstatic, and so is her grandma. They have this weird belief where they think they can make it for so much better for her than it was for them because of all the experience. I think they're absolute loonies. I bet they don't even have the money to pay for the hospital when the time comes. I believe they think we will pay for all of the unborn child's costs. I want Anne to understand that what she did was a mistake, that I love her and that I am not punishing her, but that it is not within my reach for us to live comfortably, pay for a fancy school that she will not be able to take full advantage of, and have a step-grandchild at the age of 31. How do I make a teen feel all that without ducking our relationship? She is a nice kid, but takes after some of her mom's bad traits, such as feeling any type of advice is an attack or every consequence is a punishment. I truly believe the right way is for her to terminate, not give up for adoption or raise it herself. I do not want to force her to terminate, but I do want her to see where I'm coming from. I also don't want this to duck over my marriage. I believe Dad is hot-headed right now. He is disappointed in Anne, but he's also disappointed in me because he thinks I'm not giving my fullest as I usually do. My brother's 47 wife, let's call her Anne, was diagnosed with cervical cancer at the age of 42, shortly after giving birth to their second child. 3 years later this September, Anne died. 1 month later, my brother, let's call him Ed, said he's fallen in love with his executive assistant of 1 year, let's call her Melissa, and that he intended to marry her on her 26th birthday next March. I'm close with my brother and never suspected for a moment that Melissa was anything more than an employee. My wife was very close to my brother's late wife. She flew into a rage when I told her that Ed was marrying Melissa and probably had been having an affair with her. My wife, 45, says before her death she'd always catch Anne crying. When she asked Anne what was wrong, Anne would say how Ed no longer loved her and would always talk about Melissa. My wife kept insisting to Anne that in all the years she's known Ed, he isn't the type to cheat. Now she feels guilty that she failed Anne and should have believed her. My parents have pretty much disowned Ed. They didn't even wish him a happy Thanksgiving and told him to not expect Christmas presents. Ed's best friend also told him that he needed some time to process this. Meanwhile, his other friends, business partners, and employees have basically sung the "whatever makes you happy" tune and basically accepted Melissa as they would accept a friend of a friend. Ed called me and said he felt so alone and asked if I was going to turn my back on him too. He asked for the chance to explain and said he had told Melissa that he couldn't give her the love she deserved, but she still didn't leave him and that he hadn't been happy for a long time. He told Melissa that his family would never accept her and she still stayed with him and he fell deeply in love with her. He also said that his 3-year-old son, a nephew that I love a lot, loves his soon-to-be stepmom and never really knew his real mom. I told him he hurt a lot of people and it doesn't make what he did right. However, I also told him that I loved him, but didn't love his mistakes, and I wasn't the one that needed to forgive him. Melissa was there, and I did see that she was good with my nephew. My brother said that he intended to marry her at a civil ceremony with only the minimum required people. However, I'm the only family member speaking to him and asked if I'd consider being one of the witnesses for his marriage. I told him I couldn't answer that right now. When I got back from speaking with my brother, my wife flew into a rage at me for even visiting with him. She said she'd seriously consider kicking me out if I drove to the courthouse to witness their March wedding. My brother had recently hired Melissa as the chief of staff at his other business. He is also very publicly supporting her art pieces and is in talks with people in the local art scene to include Melissa's works in their next exhibition. I usually retweet or share my brother's posts about his businesses or comment my congratulations, but my wife was furious when I reposted a post of his business introducing Melissa as the new chief of staff and also talking about general milestones for the company and wrote congrats. My wife is also mad I didn't unfriend Melissa on Facebook and asked sarcastically if I was going to like her engagement photos too. What do I do? My brother says he needs an answer on the wedding and said while he wasn't one for flaunting anything, he wanted at least one picture with him, me, and Melissa because I'm his only family left. I also worry because I love my nephew, and if Melissa is going to be his stepmom, then I would need to have a good relationship with her to see my nephew. My wife sees our niece, who is 16 and who lives in boarding school, whenever she can. But she got mad at me when I was at the park with my nephew, and Melissa was there on that day when I took my nephew out with my brother and Melissa, but beforehand went on a shopping trip with only my brother and Melissa. My wife saw Melissa's social media posts of that day and said we were buying expensive clothes while Anne was barely cold. For a long time, I loved and respected my twin sister. She's been one of my best friends and we've always had a good relationship, even though we've slightly drifted apart recently after I got married and moved, etc. All of that changed a few days ago. Recently, my three sisters, 28, 24, and 18, and I, 28, got together at my house to catch up and drink. Everything was fine until my twin sis got quite drunk and told us that she likes having sex with married men. It's like her fetish or something. She told us she has slept with a former boss, neighbors, colleagues, etc., all of whom are married. I was absolutely disgusted when she told us this. Everything I thought I knew about her disappeared in that moment. She told us that she likes to challenge herself to see if she's and charming enough to seduce married men, especially religious ones. She also said she likes having with married men who are trying to fix their marriage. This is when I lost all respect for her and almost swore at her and called her names. I couldn't believe how sick and twisted her mind is. I no longer wanted to be anywhere near her. About a minute later, she calmed down a bit and in a softer tone told us that she is currently in a 5-year-long affair with the husband of her close friend, who she's known since childhood. Let's call her Jane. I was never really close with Jane, but she's a very nice person. She's quite religious and works with religious charities, and is an all-around good human being. She's married to a guy, John, she's known for 2 decades, and they have 3 children together. I couldn't believe my sis would betray her close friend like this. I really think Jane deserves to know about this. Should I cut ties with my twin sister because of her disgusting lifestyle? And should I tell her friend about this affair? A little while after my husband came back home with our kids, I asked him about the pic my sister sent him. He told me that every now and then she sends him pics and asks questions, his opinions, etc. I asked him about what she has sent before, and he told me that sometimes in the past she sent him pics of her in different dresses and hairstyles and asked for his opinions. I asked him if there is anything else she sends him or messages him about, and he told me no. I asked him why he didn't tell me about the pics she sent him. He told me that since the pics were innocent, he didn't think it was necessary to tell me. I told him that he definitely should have told me, and he apologized. After that, I told him about what my sis confessed to last night, and he was in disbelief. I told him that I'm going to cut ties with her, and I want him to do the same as well as blocking her phone number. He agreed. After that, I wanted to contact Jane. Since I'm not close with her, I didn't have her number, and I forgot to get it from my sister's phone last night, so I got it from a mutual friend instead. Then, I called Jane and told her who I was and asked if I could meet her because it's urgent. I gave her my address and told her to come alone. When she arrived, we hugged, and I took her to my living room and sat her down. Then I explained to her what my sis told me regarding her and Jane's husband's affair, and I showed her videos I recorded of their texts and pics, vids she sent him. She burst into tears and wrapped her arms around me. I tried to console her and I offered her my full support. A few minutes later, she thanked me for telling her and told me she's going back home to confront her husband. A few hours after that, she called back and told me what went down between her and her husband. He confessed to everything and begged for her forgiveness. She told me that a while after thinking about it, she agreed to give him another chance to keep their marriage and family intact. She told me that he said it was my sis who initiated the affair, and she asked me if that's true to the best of my knowledge. I told her about my sister's lifestyle involving married men and said I'm 99.9% sure that she must have been the one who started the affair. She then told me that her and her husband are completely cutting all ties with my sis, and I told her that I'm doing the same. I recommended that if they are planning on fixing their marriage, they go to couples therapy. She agreed, and then asked me if she and I could talk to and see each other more often. I told her that I will absolutely do that, and I'm there for her if she needs me. Then I called my sister and told her why my husband and I are cutting off ties with her and that she should try not to interact with them, me or my children anymore, and then hung up. She hasn't called back since. Now, I'm only concentrating on Jane and how I can be a friend to her in her time of need. My wife went to visit her parents who live in a small suburb outside of St. Petersburg, Russia. My wife herself was born there and came to the US when she was around 18 years old, when we first met. This is not a mail-order bride scenario or anything of the sort. I was finishing up my post-grad and she was starting her undergrad. One thing led to another, and here we are. As she was a student when we first met, she did not anticipate meeting me and us getting so deeply involved, so she never planned on staying in the US. It just kind of happened that way. She entered on an F1 visa, then a K1 visa, now she has a green card. Understandably, she misses her family a lot, though for the most part we've been extremely happy together, minus the standard few squabbles here and there. 3 years ago, we had 2 wedding ceremonies, one in the US with my family and one in Russia with her family, and a mix of my immediate family. Until last week, she hasn't seen her family since the wedding due to her finishing up school and helping out my daughter, as I have custody. As school wrapped up for her, and as a graduation gift, we decided it'd be a good idea for her to go visit her family for a week. She wanted to bring my daughter with her. I initially was opposed to this, but I caved and let her bring her. My daughter wanted to go. Through her trip, she hasn't been too much in contact with me, aside the occasional message on WhatsApp and photos, etc., which is understandable. She's on vacation, and I don't expect constant alerts. But I would have liked a little more of an update. My daughter has been texting me almost daily and showing me photos as well. Yesterday morning, I had texted my wife that I'd be there to pick them up at the airport at the time she told me the flight arrived. She read the message but never answered. I told my daughter the same and she never responded. I assumed they were just busy and left it at that. I had a hellish day at work, so I went right to bed so I could be up early to go get them. I wake up today stupidly without checking my app and go to the airport. The arrival time comes, and I look at my phone to message them. I see about 60 messages from my daughter, panicking, starting nearly 15 hours ago, saying that she missed her flight and doesn't know how to get home. Confused this crap, she tells me my wife basically told her how to get home and then dropped her off at the airport. Panicked, I reach out to her and blow up her WhatsApp. She finally answers and sends a long 3-paragraph essay on how she has missed her family so much, she doesn't want to leave them, and she wants to stay longer. Pissed off that she waited to tell me this, she left my daughter alone at an airport in another country. That I took off work to come today to get her, and how this is so last minute. I go off on her through text. She tells me off and stops answering me. I reach out to her mom through WhatsApp, who doesn't speak English at all, and using Google Translate ascertain that she wants to stay for another month for her brother's birthday party. Her mom said she didn't know this was going on and went to the airport to go help my daughter get back safely. Panicked, I go to reach out to the US consulate in St. Petersburg, only to find online it was shut down in March and the nearest is in Moscow. I reach out to the Moscow one and luckily get almost an immediate response, and they were a huge help in getting my daughter on her correct flights. Even having someone meet her on the connecting airport to help her to the right terminal safely. My wife still hasn't answered me since our blowout, and her mom said she hasn't seen or heard from her since this morning. What the hell am I supposed to even do with this? The lack of responsibility and carelessness she showed is astronomical to me.